3, 2, 1, go.
Welcome into PressBox Live. I'm Stan the Fan Charles of PressBox at PressBoxOnline.com. And with me today is Ross Grimsley. Ross, how are you, my friend?
Good, buddy. How you doing?
All right. And a mutual friend of ours is joining us, and he's going to talk to us a little bit about the Orioles pitching and the way that the organization is handling those pitchers. In just a minute, Scott McGregor joins us, another old left-hander. I got two old left-handers on with me today. Ross Grimsley, Scott McGregor. I have to pose a question to those of you watching this Zoom. What company has the expertise and technology to make your home substantially more energy efficient, comfortable, and even virus-free? Well, that would be AJ Michaels Heating and Air Conditioning in Baltimore and Annapolis at ajmichaels.com. Let me repeat that, ajmichaels.com. And it's a great time of year with the playoffs around the corner in the NFL. NBA is into their first third of the season. College basketball's just tipped off in the last couple of weeks. Great time to sign up for Superbook Sports. That's Superbook Sports, the most trusted name in Vegas. They're the ones that you see all the advertising at Camden Yards. They took over the old Rick Dempsey spot for the Superbook Sports Grill there. Superbook is the most trusted name in Vegas, and now you can use their promo code, just like it says there, Stan Charles 23, to score up to $250 with their first bet bonus. Win or lose, they will match your first bet up to $250 with promo code Stan Charles 23 or Glenn Clark 23, all one word with no spaces. Visit superbook.com for terms and conditions. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. I had a little gambling problem yesterday. I had a small 5-team and 4-team parlay if Kansas City had covered. And of course, Green Bay plays their best game of the year. But
Hang with them.
Let me get that off my chest.
Yeah.
Scott, welcome in. Orioles are at the winter baseball meetings. No word yet on any movement for the Orioles just yet. But Scott, about 2 weeks ago, Orioles made what I thought at the time was a bit of a surprising move. They have reassigned pitching coach Chris Holt to be the director of pitching, which he already was the director of pitching technically. And they brought in somebody who has worked under him and Mike Elias before. Bullpen coach Drew French is going to be the new pitching coach for the Baltimore Orioles. I pose this question for you. Is this a sign that Chris Holt is even more so going to be the guy directing pitching at every level? Or am I just reading something into that?
Well, you're right. He had two roles. He had the major league pitching coach job and the overseeing of the organization. But just talking to him recently, he just said, the major league job is 24/7. So he barely got a chance to do that. And he has good, capable people at AAA and AA, good guys that are doing a good job there. But I think he really wanted to just get his hands fully on the minor leagues. I think that's his heartbeat, and he was willing to come up and take the big league job. But yeah, I mean, if you watch these guys nowadays, you don't have time to do anything else. Maybe some phone calls. You can't go visit or anything. He's got too many things going on. Then they decide to go ahead and win the East. So that put a little more pressure on him.
So let me just pose it a different way. In other words, if you were running a team, who would be director of pitching? And would that in fact mean that you're running the major league club and all the pitchers below? Or should it all come from the major league pitching coach? I'm a little confused.
Yeah, no, I think the way the system is nowadays, and Ross knows it too, nowadays, I said to you earlier that, you got just as many assistants in the dugout as you got players nowadays, and so, they've got a lot of people in space there. But I mean, Elias has come over, French has come from that place. They've all worked together. So I think in the perfect world, which I'm trusting that what Elias is doing, that all these guys will work together hand in hand. And I think if Chris is needed at the big league level, maybe if he's had somebody in AAA that's retuning and they're coming back up, maybe he'd come up and just to be there for another voice and eyeballs to, and I don't think I don't see it as a friction in this situation.
Ross, go ahead.
Yeah, Scott, being a pitching coordinator, in Seattle and the Giants, I mean, you have 5 or 6 teams that you have in charge of all the pitchers, and throw that, and being a major league pitching coach, that is a lot on your plate to really do. And the Orioles have got their minor league system, just talking to people and seeing it. I mean, they do a really good job. And now when Chris has to divide his time between the big leagues and minor league, it takes away something, even though he does have some quality people there, obviously, but it takes away from what he wants to do. And Major League Baseball is getting younger and younger. They're taking chances on young guys, bringing them to the big leagues. You want to make sure they're as ready as possible, because if they're not, you're going to have a David Clyde or somebody like that who's going to go right by the wayside and get too much on his plate at one time. But Scotty, I know you worked with the Orioles before. You go to spring training with them now and probably again next year. Who are any guys at the minor league level pitching wise that could come up and make an impact for the Orioles this coming year?
You know what? I think we saw most of them last year, because they shuffled them up and down pretty good. I think I didn't get to see that much to know who's the number one guys. McDermott, I think they're talking about him. And, I just think that the getting Johnny Means back in there and seeing what Grayson did at the end and Kramer, the bullpen guys, I'm not really sure on that one, to tell you the truth, but who's the number one guy down there? Because I was just watching the Orioles last year, and in spring training, I didn't see any of the games, so I didn't see guys, so I didn't get my hand in on that as much as I'd like to.
Yeah, when you go to spring training and being a somewhat of an old school guy, and obviously how do the players react to you, the pitchers especially? How do they react to you and what you have to offer? Because I know you have a plethora of stuff to offer these guys. Are they receptive to it and eager to learn some things?
Oh yeah, they're tremendous. Really, it's been great. And just talking to Holt recently, when I called him, just asked him what was going on. I said, "Well, I'm certainly hoping. Elias has said that he was going to have me come back for spring. And so you're hoping." Chris goes, "Hey, the kids absolutely love you. They love it when you're around. So, we have a lot to offer, Ross.
Right.
That experience of years and years and innings, and just being out there, and plus, they know who you are. Flanny used to tell me, "Don't worry, they'll go to the book on you, and once they see what you've done, so they know what I've done, and they, that gives you the open door to speak to them. They can't just say you're crazy. Of course, sometimes we are, but."
Well, you did it with less than a 95, 100-mile-an-hour fastball.
Yeah,
So
oh yeah.
that says something in itself right there that I don't think guys appreciate overall as much now as it was before, when you actually had to pitch, and now it's more of a throw. But you know what? Again, the Orioles do such a great job of that in the minor league system, and just about every endeavor of the game there. Which is really important, I think.
Oh yeah, from top to bottom, really, the regular players that come up have such a good command of the strike zone. They don't chase a lot. They hit the ball wherever it's pitched. The pitchers are coming up now throwing strikes. If they're not, they send Grayson back down and say, "Hey, throw it over the plate," and you can come back up. So they're playing real baseball now. So they've taken a big bite out of the American League East, and we'll see.
Yeah.
They got big thing to fill in.
One more thing, Stan. Let me ask this one little
Go ahead.
question, and then one of the things I know the Orioles did at one particular point before the last couple of years, they weren't throwing very many strikes and not very many first pitch strikes, so they moved the fence back, and I think that made a little bit of a difference. But what was Holt's? What did he try to ingrain in these pitchers that saw the change? Was there any particular thing?
Well, last year when I came to spring training, after they finished up pretty good and they threw the ball over the plate, and I saw him the first day. I go, man, I was really proud of you guys, for throwing strikes. He goes, yeah, what was that? I said, the catcher actually sat behind home plate. They were sitting behind the plate and they were hitting the glove instead of going to the corners, and they got a little bit away from it towards the end there. I think the guys might have had a little deer in the headlights in the playoffs, but it's amazing. I remember Cuellar when he was in spring training before Mike passed away. He was there in spring training. And he was telling the guys, he said, I told Etchebarren, you sit in the middle of the plate. I'll take care of the rest of it. So,
Yeah.
So if you're not afraid to throw it over, and once the catcher was sitting behind home plate, that forces you to either look like an idiot, keep throwing it out there, or throw it to his glove and find out. I've always told him, you throw it over the plate, you find out if you're good enough, and you find out what you have to adjust, or you go home and bag groceries someplace or something.
Yeah.
Hey, Scott, you used the term when I asked you that whole question about what the pitching coach, who should be the real head. You used the phrase, you said there won't be any friction with these guys because they all know each other and they all trust each other. The previous regime, Buck Showalter's regime, that wasn't always the case. Dan Duquette inherited Showalter. Then Dan Duquette picked the director of pitching, and then the director of pitching wasn't really appreciated by Dom Cheedy, Dave Wallace, and Buck. And I'm talking about Rick Peterson. Talk a little bit about how that friction can really spoil the development of somebody.
Oh, well, certainly. The kids aren't dumb. They know, that Rick was never around in the big league. I mean, he was in spring training, but he went to the minor league camp as soon as it was open for the pitching. And then during the season, I don't think he ever made an appearance up there because he knew he wasn't welcomed, and it was friction, and you don't want that. We were pretty bad at that time too. So it kind of turned the page when you finally get this group now that's pretty cohesive and working together.
I guess the point I make is I've talked to Duquette on these Zooms, and Ross, you've been with me, where he said one of his biggest disappointments was they were unable to really develop the pitching, the prospects. And I look at somebody like Kevin Gausman, who spent 4 or 5 years in the Oriole organization, and we never really reaped the benefits of Kevin Gausman.
No, he was hit and miss. And Ross knows when he went out to Frisco that he said, what happened? He goes, they just left me alone.
Yeah.
Right.
And he's developed his changeup is so much more consistent now, because really it was a iffy pitch back then. And same with Jake. Jake was in the regime before that.
He was the Rick Adair regime.
Oh my gosh, that was horrible. Those poor guys. But he
that's a regime that like to call somebody at 1:30 in the morning and berate them.
Yeah, and they wouldn't say. I didn't know that until I talked to Britton one day. Opened up to it, and he said, "What are we going to do?" The guys, we couldn't say anything, but they wore it, and Jake was beat down, and I know I was filling in for Mike Griffin one series, and Jake pitched a game and he didn't even have an out pitch. And I asked RJ the next day, I said, can I talk to him? He goes, yeah. So I went out and he happened to be sitting in the dugout. And I said, what's going on with you? You didn't even I said, you should, with your fastball that you came up with, what I used to see, you should be able to, in AAA here, just stand on the mound and say, hey guys, I'm throwing fastball, see if you can hit it. And he goes, "Oh, they don't want me." And he was like Eeyore, they just was beaten down. And I finally said at the end, I said, one of the best things that happened to me. He goes, "What's that?" I said, "I got traded." He got traded like a week later, 2 weeks later, and he ended up Cy Young because he was just blowing the big leagues away with his fastball. You never know it. It changed me. I was 3 years in AAA, and I finally got the chance to get to the big leagues here, and it opened the door. So you just never know what's going to happen. When these guys get traded, you go, "Oh, why didn't you do it?"
You just wonder if that friction between Peterson, in other words, you've got basically some pitchers that are being taught two different ways to pitch.
Well, at the same time, Ross knows. I came up. We had Palmer and Flanny and myself and Dennis and then Boddicker. When you have guys
No real talent there.
Well, when you got guys that out of the 5 starts, you're going to get pretty much 3 ace starts. And so if you're the guy that has a shitty start, oh God, I'm just going to watch 3 more brilliant ones and I'll go out and do it again. So you had the momentum, you had osmosis going that way. But all of our guys, just if they did good 1 or 2, that's great. As soon as they had a bad outing, I'm going, "Oh hell, here we go." So it was just the atmosphere was not conducive to being especially the AL East then. This year, the AL East, we won it, but it wasn't the monster yeah.
Ross, go ahead.
Yeah,
I know you got a couple more.
Yeah, so Scotty, what pitching wise, obviously, is a big thing for the Orioles. They need looking for a starter now with Batista down. They're going to have to. They want a bullpen guy with some closing experience. What do the Orioles have to do to get to the next step? And that's to go hopefully deeper in the playoffs. What is some of the things that they're going to have to look to do that type of thing?
Well, yeah, they got there this year, and our young guys just, came into a buzzsaw playing against the Rangers, but continue to do the things that they did well and add some things. But when you get to the playoffs now, you got to have an unbelievable bullpen. You got to have guys that can go out there and you don't have to worry about, hurting their feelings or whatever. You got to say, "Hey, I might have to use you every night, be ready." So you're going to need some mature guys. You're going to need a guy, Gibbet did a great job, starting for us and filled innings and was a veteran guy. You got to find somebody that can do that for these young guys. We had Palmer, Jimmy taught us how to pitch. We sat there, me and Flanny and him sat there and watched every pitch. You know how that goes, and we figured out what to do. And if we didn't do it, he'll go out and do it the next time. And so we go, "Okay, that's how you do it." So
Right, true.
You got to have that guy, and you just got to find some guys that are, obviously with Mike Elias, they've had the real like innings pitch thing, and they're very careful how much they're going to let guys throw, and you got to be able to take the wraps off, and guys
and that's my next question. Obviously you got to have a good bullpen for the playoffs, but you also need some starters that can give you some depth in the ball game, get to the 6th or 7th inning, because that's really my question is, when do you start priming the guys in your organization to do that? Do you do it at the minor league level? Do you do it at AA? What is your thoughts on that? Because I think if they're ever going to get back to doing this again, they're going to have to start training the guys at the lower levels to be able to do that type of thing.
Well, that's always the case with all these pitch counts and everything nowadays. You're 100 pitches and you're gone. I don't care. It's big leagues. If you're throwing a perfect game up there anymore, if you got 100 pitches, they get the bullpen up. But that's just the nature of the game. And I think that my big thing would be start it in spring training. Heck with this 1 inning jobs and 2.
Yeah.
I mean, we had 9 innings in before we broke camp. I'm not asking them to do that.
No,
But get them up to 7 innings in spring training. Get them used to. Get them ready for it. They have to grow up. They're major leaguers. They're men. And they have to be able to put up 200 and some innings. And That's what it takes.
Well,
Scott,
if
put
you get your
along-
ass kicked around a little bit, you might figure out a way if you're going to be left out there to get out of that particular jam or something. And that guys don't have that opportunity to do that again. It's not really their fault, but you can learn to do that if you get stuck in a situation. Find a way to get out of it. I don't think they have that opportunity now.
Well, that's where you looked at, in the World Series with those guys with Dusty and what's his name?
Bruce Bochy.
Boach.
Bochy. They're old school guys. They left their guys out there a little way. They let them work their way through. And
Scott, this issue of the innings pitched and the pitch counts, how did this get even further complicated by the pandemic? And the fact that the game was shut down.
Yeah, that whatever. That's I don't even want to answer that.
Yeah. You don't think it had anything to do with?
Come on, grow up, man. We're major leaguers. You're getting $700,000 minimum payment. Get out there and earn it.
All right. I've got another question for you in just a minute, and we'll be back. I just need to pay a couple bills here with the Costas Inn and tell folks that the Costas Inn has been around for over 50 years, always at the same location, 4100 North Point Boulevard. Ross can testify to how good the crabs were, but if you're going to try and eat crabs any time of year, you got to have a plan, and that starts with the phone number, 410-477-1975. Give them a call, check out the availability, the size, and the cost of your crabs before you order them and reserve them at the Costas Inn. They've got specials across the board, Monday through Friday, some terrific steak specials, fish specials. They've got it all there for you. And of course, great crabs, great crab cakes, and great crab soup, all there at the Costas Inn, 4100 North Point Boulevard. Phone number 410-477-1975, or go to the website. Check out the entire menu at CostasInn.com. Scott, getting back to the relief pitcher situation, replacing Bautista. In the last month, I've talked to John Smoltz on the radio one day, and I talked to Kyle Gibson the other day, and they're both of the opinion that Tyler Wells should be and is a starting pitcher. I don't question that he's got the stuff to start. My question, does he have the staying power to start because of that shoulder stuff he had earlier in his career? In your book, do you pencil him in as a starter for the Orioles this year or a relief pitcher?
It's a tough question because he's really good at both.
Yeah.
And
they got a real need for that closer.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Did all right, but he wasn't Batista, but
No.
The game has changed so much. I love starting pitching. You just say, get starting pitching and you're going to be all right. But that's not the case. Even as good, if Wells is really good, he pitches 6 innings?
Yep.
Yeah, 6, 7 innings, maybe. And then you got to have the guys to end. So what if you hand the ball to them and they can't close it? You're in trouble. And that's when in the Showalter regime you had
Zach Britton and Jim Johnson. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you had O'Day and you had Brock and to Britton. So it was a 6-inning game. So that's what you got to find, and that's not easy. And Colomé did a great job, and some of these, they got it done, and they were tired at the end though.
I pose you the same question about DL Hall. In your mind, to me, he's a total out and out relief pitching star. I don't think he's got what it takes to be a starter. Where do you stand on that?
Well, he showed us at the end what he could do. He can do multiple innings, and he was as good as I'd ever seen him. That changeup really came around. He was throwing strikes with his fastball, and when he first signed, he had a big old curveball and good fastball and a changeup, and starting is some guys don't like it. Some guys, are better off that the phone rings, get up, get in, and I hated it. I couldn't stand it. But that's he's just a good piece to have. As long as he's a great piece to have.
Reminds me an awful lot of Arthur Rhodes in a lot of ways,
Well, yeah, I was really impressed with him. He did a good job.
Ross, go ahead.
Where does Dylan Tate fit in if he's healthy?
Well, if he's healthy, he's a guy. He's he was a big part of that bullpen a year ago, and to miss him and then to get Johnny back means, gosh, you threw 8 innings and he was back. You thought, and he couldn't make it for the playoffs because he was a little sore.
Yeah, well, you hadn't heard a lot about him. I think they reinstated him off the 60-day injured reserve.
Yeah.
I was just curious about that.
That's good news, Ross.
Yeah,
that's good news.
That's just another guy. I think. And that gets to the point. What do you are the O's? Are they going to go after? Probably, they're not going to go after a top tier guy. I don't think they're going to spend that kind of money for free agency. But there's a lot of talk with the kid from the right-handed pitcher from the White Sox. Yeah. There's several teams involved in talking to him, but you kind of see what's your feel on what the O's may do.
Trade.
If they do anything in the at the winter meetings.
They got to trade. They've got all this minor league system that's got people. You have to decide what you want to do with them. And I know I saw today that they're talking. People want Westbrook, and he's a pretty good player. To lose. Him and a starter to get that kid back, I don't know. That's how we did it back then. They traded for me and Tippy and Dempsey, and we worked out for them, and they gave up players, and they didn't. We just got us for the minimum. But minimum.
Scott, this kid that they're talking about getting, and I don't know whether you've seen much of him or not. This one free agent reliever that they've been attached to is the guy that Tampa acquired in Pittsburgh last year, Robert Stevenson.
Yeah, Stevenson.
Familiar with him at all? The numbers are very impressive.
Yeah, I've just seen the numbers, and I know he pitched. They said he pitched against us through 3 innings and gave up a run or something like that.
Yeah, I think it was 5 innings. I read 1 run.
Well, yeah, it might have been. Yeah. You know what? These guys, the Orioles, are becoming what we used to be, where they had Hank Peters, and then they had Tommy Giordano, and they had scouts that found the people. Mm-hmm. And I'm trusting Elias and Sig and these guys that they know what they're looking for, and they're pretty savvy, so I think they've proved themselves. And when they came in here guns blazing 5 years ago, everybody said, who in the heck is this? What's going on? I think he deserves a lot of credit for what's happened, and I trust him that he knows what he needs.
Hey, one last question I have for you. They clearly missed, and I thought it was a good trade when they made it, the acquisition of Flaherty. He added very little down the stretch. But I just wanted to ask you your assessment. Did they give up anything in either of the 2 pitchers they gave up in Rahm and Showalter?
Well, Rahm stuck it up our butt when he pitched against us. Me and Davey Schmidt loved Rahm from the time we got him. He threw the ball over the plate, and he's developed that changeup. And he was a gutsy kid on the mound. And but that happened. The Yankees. I remember talking to Nettles once. He goes, "Damn, we gave up 100 wins when we got rid of you." So, you never know. Well, once again, you don't know. That's the tough part about it.
Yeah, trades are a lot of risk and reward.
Yeah, and the free agent it is just so expensive, and so I don't know. You look at these guys that get all these big monies, and that's a lot of money.
They're getting some big bucks now.
Woo!
Some guys. Severino, he got 13 million, I think, didn't he? And he was
You
He's
got
been hurt,
13
but
million from the Mets.
I think it might be a pretty good chance. I would, I'd kind of like him if he's healthy.
Yeah,
Hopefully.
yeah. I think what we should get Stan is Joe Flacco. Bring him in.
He's still got a good arm. He's still got a good arm. Hey, Scott, we really appreciate you joining us. It's great to catch up with you. Happy, healthy holiday season to you and your family down there in Tennessee. All right.
Hey,
Thanks.
Stan, one thing,
Yeah, go ahead, Ross.
our thoughts and prayers to Ryan Miner. He's in hospice.
Yep.
And I don't know him that well. I know his brother Damon. He was with the Giants when I was there. And like I said, Ryan's in hospice. I think they've done about all they can do for him. So our thoughts and prayers are with him and his family.
And for Richie Dower too.
And
He's-
Richie
yes.
Dower. Ross, what have you heard? Anything new on Richie at all?
He's going home, and Chris is going to have to do critical care with him, and
Oh God.
it's a burden for that poor girl and taking care of Richie. And Richie's just had a rough go, and
Yeah.
so it's tough.
All right. You guys are both former members of the Players Association. Does the association, are they able to help out?
They're trying.
Is there a fund?
Yeah.
there to help?
They have Bat is involved
Yeah.
with that. And Chris had to move to Cincinnati from Atlanta. They had to sell the house, and she's going through a bunch. And hopefully there is some help out there for her. Now, I don't know if it's going to be enough, but they're trying.
All right.
Yeah, they're trying.
All right, guys. Really appreciate it. Happy holiday season, Ross. We'll touch base later in the week, and we'll talk about next week. Okay.
Gotcha, buddy.
I
Tell
guess
Kara,
we'll-
hey.
I guess we'll
All right.
wrap up.
Here,
Wrap up the winter meetings where nothing happens again.
Yeah.
Thanks, Scott.
Thanks,
Appreciate it.
Scotty.
Take care.
All right. Thanks to the Costas Inn, our friends at Superbook Sports. Again, use that promo code StanCharles23, and also our friends at AJ Michaels Heating and Air Conditioning, ajmichaels.com. For all of us, Scott McGregor, Ross Grimsley, Stan the Fan. We'll see you down the road pretty soon. Bye.
Bye.